party moves away, the quiet has descended on the Palace of Holyrood House, because it is the moment that the palace says farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. The King's bodyguard, as it now is, forms up on each side of the house. The Royal Company of Archers. The High Constables of Holyrood, their Bailey, John Scotland Creef, are in their places under the colonnade, always here when the sovereign is in residence. Soon, slowly, the procession will make its way up the Royal Mile to St Giles, through those crowds who will be remembered, who will be remembering at the sight of the hearse and the late Queen's coffin the sombre nature of this occasion. For all the feeling of thanksgiving and the sense of happiness about this city looking at its best and preparing to do its former sovereign proud, now the true nature of this occasion is revealed to everyone. His Majesty the King, his sister the Princess Royal, in the uniform of an admiral, the Duke of York, his brother, not wearing military uniform on this occasion because he is no longer a working royal. He will wear a uniform at the vigil in Westminster Hall as a mark of respect to the Queen, but not on the other occasions. And the Earl of Wessex, who is also the Earl of Forfar. The Duke of York has the title of the Earl of Inverness. The Queen's 4 children will walk with the house. The procession begins at a stately pace across the forecourt of the palace. It's seen so much royal history down the years, some of it bloody, some of it glorious, some of it happy. The tramp of feet on the cobbles of the courtyard will be heard by the crowds as they await the sombre sight of the late Queen's funeral procession. Above the royal standard of Scotland, draped on the coffin, is a wreath with white roses, white freesias, white chrysanthemums, dried white heather from Balmoral, and of course thistles and herbs. Quite suddenly, the bustle of this city, filled with vast crowds for this occasion, gives way to a deeply respectful silence. Quiet sound of those feet in the procession being all that we can hear. start really of a procession that will take us right through the lying in state in Westminster Hall to the funeral itself next Monday and the Queen's departure from London for Windsor and interment in St George's Chapel. Taken up the route she knew so well, the route that ends at Edinburgh Castle. It has, on the way up, the Cathedral of St Giles, the High Kirk of Edinburgh, where a service of thanksgiving for her life will begin at 3 o'clock. Which is the parish church of Holyrood in a way, and she was very familiar with it. And Reverend Neil Gardner, when we saw in the procession earlier, the minister was chaplain to the Queen when she was at the palace. It's a beautiful old church, and among those buried in the graveyard is Adam Smith, the economist whose statue is outside. It was also the scene of a royal wedding. The Queen's granddaughter Zara married Mike Tyndall there in 2011. It's a place very familiar to her. And the way in which the dignity, the quietness, and the measured tread of the bearer party somehow communicate themselves to the crowd is fascinating and memorable. They have absorbed the atmosphere, the solemn atmosphere of this moment, and are deeply aware, one feels, of its significance. For the King and the Queen's other children, despite all the preparations they will have made for this moment in their emotional selves and in physical ways, there is nothing quite. For the service, which will lead to a period of about 24 hours when the Queen's coffin will lie in St Giles, it'll be open to people to come and pay their respects. And then, gradually, day by day, back to London, to Westminster Hall, to the lying in state, to the Abbey, Westminster Abbey, for the funeral service, and there out of London to Windsor. So this really is the beginning of that long procession, which started with the transfer of the coffin from Balmoral to Edinburgh by road on Sunday, and now takes on this funereal pace. There was a little bit of shouting somewhere in the